All right, everybody, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're heading down under, mate.
Kitty.
No shrimp on the Barbie today, though. We're going way beyond the typical Aussie stuff, the cliches you always hear about.
Yeah, we're gonna uncover some surprising things about Australia. I mean, I think even people who live there might learn something new.
I bet. Our source for all of this is pretty cool, actually. It's a list on a site called Top Tens, one of those user-created things. But this one's all about things you probably don't know about Australia.
Sounds like fun.
Oh, yeah, it's a good one. I mean, we won't get to everything on the list, but
No.
trust me, we found some real gems, things that'll make you go, wait, what?
Okay, you've got me intrigued. Let's dive in.
All right, so first up, get this. Australia has the longest fence in the entire world. I'm
Seriously?
not kidding. It's called the Dingo Fence, and it stretches for over 5,530 kilometers.
5,530. Whoa, that's...
Think of it this way. Driving from New York City all the way to L.A.,
Ugh.
that's still shorter.
That is insane. What's it even for?
Well, it's right there in the name dingoes.
Dingoes.
Yeah, it's meant to keep dingoes, those wild dogs, away from livestock.
Wow, that's dedication. A fence that long just for dingoes. That's got to be a story in itself, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to think about the effort that went into building it, the impact it has on the landscape, even on other animals besides dingoes.
It's probably even caused some arguments along the way, I'm sure.
Oh, no, definitely. Some people say it messes with the natural balance, the ecosystem. And there's even debate about whether there are better ways to deal with dingoes, maybe something more, well, sustainable in the long run.
Makes you think.
Speaking of thinking, let's shift gears for a sec. Back to Australia's early days, when it was a British penal colony, right?
Right.
So their first police force,
Yeah.
get this, they were convicts.
Hold on. Convicts, like criminals, as cops.
Exactly. Well, well-behaved convicts, I guess. Back then, things were pretty rough, and they had to be creative.
That is wild. I mean, talk about second chances, right?
It really makes you wonder about how different things were back then.
No kidding. All right, but let's jump ahead a bit. Nowadays, Australia is known for, among other things, its coffee culture.
Yeah, people love their coffee there.
Big time. And to fuel that obsession, guess what they have? The world's biggest espresso machine.
Whoa, 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 hold up. The biggest. Like, how big are we talking?
Imagine this thing. It's so massive it takes 5 people to operate it. It's practically a factory for espresso.
That must pump out enough coffee to keep the whole country awake.
I know, right? Okay, ready for another one? This one's about the weather.
Hit me with it.
Australia gets more snow than Switzerland.
Wait, seriously. More snow.
Yeah.
But Australia is all beaches and deserts, right?
Well, that's what most people think. But remember, Australia is enormous. It has all sorts of climates. The mountains there, especially the Alps, get tons of snow in the winter, like proper skier's paradise stuff.
Okay, you know what? I really need to visit Australia. I had no idea.
It really is a land of surprises. And speaking of surprises, they were way ahead of the game when it came to women's rights.
Oh, yeah.
Australia was actually the second country in the world to give women the right to vote, back in 1902.
That's amazing.
It was a huge step forward, and it took a lot of brave people fighting for what they believed in. You know, it's a good reminder that change doesn't just happen, people make it happen.
You're right about that. All right, so on the topic of being ahead of the curve, we got to talk about Melbourne.
Oh yeah, Melbourne.
It was named most livable city in the world, like 7 years in a row. What do you think of Melbourne?
I've actually never been, but everyone says it's incredible. The art scene is amazing, the food's supposed to be top-notch, and people say it's got a really chill vibe.
Sounds pretty ideal. Now, here's a fun one, especially if you're into language. The word selfie. It's Australian slang, born back in 2002.
No way! I did not know that.
Yep. It started out as just something people said online, but look at it now. Everyone's snapping selfies.
It's crazy how a word can go from slang to, like, worldwide use.
Back to some mind-blowing stuff, though. Did you know Australia was only the 3rd country in the world to launch its own satellite into space?
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah, they were right up there with the US and the Soviet Union in the space race.
You don't hear about that much. I mean, that says a lot about their science and technology.
For sure. Okay, here's a fun fact about their capital city, Canberra. It was chosen as a compromise, basically to settle a big rivalry between Sydney and Melbourne.
That makes sense. Those two are both major cities.
So instead of picking one over the other, they went with Canberra, somewhere in between.
Clever solution.
All right, time to address the elephant, or rather the snake in the room. Australia is known for its dangerous wildlife, right?
Yeah, that's definitely part of its reputation.
And for good reason. They have the most venomous snakes of any country in the world.
It's true, but honestly, you're not likely to run into one. Australians are used to living with them, and there are precautions in place to keep everyone safe.
That's reassuring.
It's all about respecting nature, wherever you go. Speaking of nature, let's talk about how massive Australia is. It's 32 times bigger than the UK.
32 times.
Oh,
And get this, it's almost the same size as the entire USA.
that's mind-boggling. But it's not exactly packed with people, is it?
Nope, it's actually got the 6th lowest population density in the world. Lots of wide open spaces.
Which is probably why they love those big cars.
Probably. All right, ready for a history lesson?
Always.
Remember the moon landing back in 1969?
Of course. Neil Armstrong, one small step. Iconic.
Those images, the ones that were broadcast to the whole world, guess where they came from?
Where?
Australia. A place called the Parkes Observatory played a key role in sharing that moment with everyone.
That is so cool. I never would have guessed.
It really shows that even countries far away from, like, the center of things can still be part of big historical events.
Absolutely. And of course, we can't wrap this up without mentioning kangaroos.
How could we forget?
Fun fact, there are more kangaroos in Australia than people.
Really? That many? Yep. They're truly a symbol of Australia. So there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of some surprising things about Australia.
It really is a land of contrasts, isn't it? I mean, you've got everything from those vast landscapes and incredible wildlife to a history of progressive thinking and amazing scientific achievements.
You've got me thinking, with all of that, where does Australia fit in? Like the global picture. Is it underestimated?
Or even misunderstood. It's a good question to ponder.
It really is. And hey, if you're as intrigued by Australia as we are, keep exploring. Who knows what other hidden gems you might uncover.
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Cheers!